Look around you. The loudest voices get the most attention. The most shallow content gets the most views. The people who think the least seem to succeed the fastest. And somewhere in the corner sits the overthinker, the deep feeler, the person who asks questions no one wants to answer, watching their carefully constructed insights get buried under an avalanche of noise. If you've ever felt punished for being thoughtful in a world that rewards thoughtlessness, you're not crazy. You're seeing clearly. Here's something nobody wants to admit. We live in a civilization that has accidentally built a massive machinery designed to amplify stupidity and silence wisdom. Not because of some grand conspiracy, but because the very structures we created to connect us, to inform us, to elevate us, have been hijacked by something more primitive than truth. They've been hijacked by our craving for comfort, our addiction to speed, and our terror of complexity. Think about it. Social media algorithms don't reward depth, they reward reaction. The education system doesn't celebrate original thinking, it celebrates memorization and obedience. Corporate culture doesn't promote the visionary, it promotes the one who fits in best, who causes the least friction, who can simplify a message until it means almost nothing. We've built a world where being smart enough to question is a liability, and being dumb enough to never doubt is an advantage. The ancient Greeks had a word for this. Sophistry, the art of making the weaker argument appear stronger, of sounding intelligent without actually being wise. Sophists were paid handsomely in Athens, while Socrates, who asked genuine questions and pursued real truth, was given hemlock. He was killed not for being wrong, but for making people uncomfortable with how much they didn't know. History hasn't changed as much as we pretend. The marketplace of ideas still punishes those who force us to think too hard. We've just replaced the hemlock with irrelevance, cancellation, and algorithmic invisibility. In our modern age, wisdom is often mistaken for arrogance, depth for pretension, and careful thinking for weakness. Meanwhile, confidence without competence is mistaken for leadership. Noise without substance is mistaken for passion. And the person who can reduce every complex issue into a tweet-sized slogan is called a genius. But why does this happen? Why does the wise person so often find themselves marginalized, dismissed, or outright attacked? The answer lies in something deeply human and deeply uncomfortable. Wisdom threatens comfort. A wise person sees through the comfortable lies we tell ourselves. They notice the contradictions. They ask the questions that expose our collective delusions. And society, which is really just millions of people trying desperately to maintain their sense of security and identity, cannot tolerate too much of that. It's not malicious. It's protective. We've created systems that optimize for agreement, for speed, for the path of least resistance. When you introduce someone who slows things down, who says, "Wait, let's think about this differently," who refuses to accept the obvious answer, you introduce friction into the machine. And the machine has learned to eject friction. Consider how this plays out in your own life. Maybe you've been in a meeting where you raised a valid concern, only to be told you're being negative. Maybe you've shared a nuanced opinion online, only to be drowned out by people who didn't even read what you wrote. Maybe you've watched someone with half your insight and twice your confidence get the promotion, the followers, the recognition you deserved. It stings, not just because it's unfair, but because it reveals a truth we don't want to face. The world doesn't actually want wisdom. It wants the appearance of wisdom. It wants confidence. It wants simplicity. It wants someone to tell them everything will be okay, without making them change anything about how they live. The wise person cannot offer that. The wise person must say, "This is complicated, I don't have all the answers. Let's sit with this discomfort together." And that's a harder sell than hope packaged in certainty. Now here's where it gets interesting. The punishment of wisdom isn't just external, it's internal too. Because if you're someone who thinks deeply, who questions constantly, who sees patterns others miss, you carry a weight others don't feel. You see the suffering behind the smiles. You notice the fragility of the structures everyone else assumes are permanent. You understand that most of what we call progress is just rearranging our problems into different shapes. This awareness becomes a kind of prison. While others sleep soundly in their certainties, you lie awake, haunted by maybes. While others act boldly on half-formed ideas, you hesitate, paralyzed by seeing too many angles. The curse of wisdom is that it makes you slow in a world that rewards speed, uncertain in a world that rewards conviction, complex in a world that rewards simplicity. You're not just punished by society, you punish yourself with your own clarity. If this resonates with you, if you've felt this isolation that comes with seeing too much, understand that you're part of an ancient lineage. Every generation has had its wise ones who felt out of step with their time. And every generation has had to decide whether to dumb themselves down to fit in, or to remain true to their nature and accept the loneliness that comes with it. If you're still here, if you're still listening, then subscribe to this journey. Because what comes next isn't just about understanding the problem, it's about discovering what to do with your wisdom in a world that doesn't seem to want it. So what do you do when you find yourself wise in a world that celebrates the dumb? The first answer is the hardest one. You accept the cost. There's no way around this. Wisdom has always been expensive. It costs you easy friendships with people who want to stay on the surface. It costs you opportunities that require you to pretend you don't see what you see. It costs you the comfort of belonging to tribes that demand you stop asking difficult questions. But here's what they don't tell you. That cost is also your liberation. Because once you accept that you will not be rewarded in the traditional ways, once you release your grip on the need for external validation, something extraordinary happens. You become free to be fully yourself. You stop performing intelligence for an audience that can't recognize it anyway. You stop dumbing down your insights, hoping they'll finally land. You stop exhausting yourself trying to translate your depth into the shallow language of mass appeal. The secret that the wise have always known is this: you're not actually supposed to make everyone understand. Wisdom isn't a product to be marketed to the masses. It's a light for those who are ready to see. Your job isn't to wake up people who are determined to stay asleep. Your job is to be a signal for those who are already looking for what you have. Think of it like this. In a room full of people watching shadows on a cave wall, convinced the shadows are reality, you don't win by shouting louder than the shadows. You win by quietly walking toward the exit, trusting that those who are ready will notice you moving and follow. This is how wisdom has always spread, not through force or popularity, but through recognition. The right people will find you. The right opportunities will emerge. Not because the world suddenly changed its values, but because you stopped trying to succeed according to its broken value system. There's a concept in Eastern philosophy called Wu Wei, action through non-action. It's the idea that the greatest power comes not from forcing outcomes, but from aligning so completely with your nature that your actions become effortless and inevitable. When you stop fighting against your own depth, when you stop apologizing for your complexity, when you stop trying to be digestible for people who aren't hungry for real food, you begin to operate from Wu Wei. You write what's true, not what will go viral. You speak what needs to be said, not what will win applause. You build relationships based on genuine resonance, not strategic networking. And paradoxically, this is when your real influence begins. Not the hollow influence of follow accounts and trending topics, but the deep influence of changed minds and transformed lives. But here's the revelation that ties everything together, the truth that most people will never grasp. Modern society doesn't actually reward the dumb and punish the wise. It rewards those who can operate effectively within its systems, and it punishes those who cannot or will not. The tragedy is that we've built systems that are themselves dumb. Systems that optimize for the wrong things. Attention over understanding, reaction over reflection, certainty over truth. So yes, the person who can game the algorithm, who can simplify until meaning disappears, who can sell confidence without competence, that person appears to be winning. But they're winning a game that doesn't matter. They're collecting tokens in a simulation while real life happens elsewhere. You, the overthinker, the one who sees too much, the one who can't unsee the complexity, you're not losing. You're just playing a different game, a longer game, a deeper game, a game where the rewards aren't immediate dopamine hits, but something more lasting. Wisdom, real wisdom, doesn't pay off next quarter. It pays off across a lifetime. It pays off in relationships that nourish rather than drain you. It pays off in work that means something beyond the paycheck. It pays off in a self you can actually respect when you're alone with your thoughts. The world will continue to celebrate its shallow victories. Let it. Your task is not to compete in that arena. Your task is to build a life so aligned with truth that the noise of that arena becomes irrelevant. Here's what I want you to remember. Being wise in a foolish world is not a curse. It's a calling. Yes, it's harder. Yes, you'll often feel alone. Yes, you'll watch people less capable than you get rewards you deserve, but you're seeing what most cannot see. You're feeling what most have numbed themselves against. You're thinking thoughts that most don't have the courage to think. That's not a punishment. That's a responsibility. The world doesn't need another person optimized for its broken systems. It needs people who can see beyond those systems, who can imagine something better, who can hold space for complexity while everyone else demands simplicity, who can stay curious while everyone else has already made up their minds. So if you've felt punished for your wisdom, I want you to reframe that experience. You haven't been punished. You've been refined. Every time the world rejected your depth, you had to decide whether your truth was worth protecting. Every time someone dismissed your insights, you had to choose between belonging and integrity. Every time you were made to feel like too much or not enough, you were actually being sorted, separated from the crowd that would have diluted you, prepared for the work that only you can do. The wise have always walked a lonely road, but that road leads somewhere the crowd will never reach. And one day, when the systems everyone trusted begin to crack, when the easy answers stop working, when the noise finally becomes unbearable, people will look around for someone who actually knows how to think. And they'll find you, still there, still wise, still true, waiting not with judgment, but with the understanding that only comes from having traveled the difficult path yourself. Like this video if these words found you at the right time. Comment with one insight that hit you hardest, and subscribe because we're building something rare here. A space where depth isn't punished but celebrated, where wisdom isn't a liability but a gift. Share this with someone who needs to hear that their overthinking isn't a flaw but a feature. Their questions aren't annoying but essential. Their inability to accept easy answers isn't weakness but strength. The dumb will inherit the algorithm, but the wise will inherit everything that actually matters.